Hare Krishna. Well, sing Jaya Radha Madhava. For those of you who don't know this song by heart, this is a wonderful song, little song written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who is the father of Srila Prabhupada's initiating spiritual master. And he's really the pioneer of devotional service, bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness in the modern age. Yep. We need to get more volume. Anyone out there? Anyone there? No one here. No one in this room lives in the temple, including me. So he wrote this song, and Srila Prabhupada would start his classes with this song. And what it does is it evokes the mood of Vrindavan. It's about Radha and Krishna and the gopis and Yashoda Mai and like that. So it has a beautiful little, and we'll sing it, those who know it, and then I'll give a little translation. He would sing before every class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jai Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Vajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Anjaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, Pritu, can you find someone back there who, you know how to turn up the volume? Maybe Nimai can do it. So I'd like to do something that I didn't get to do last Saturday, which was to read the final offering of Gunagrari Swami in the Vyasa Puja this year. Every year, for those of you who may not know, we put out a book, a Srila Vyasa Puja book for Srila Prabhupada for his appearance day. We call it birthday or appearance day. This year was September 4th, and I've been doing this forever. My whole bookshelf is filled with these since 1969. Now, I haven't worked on it since 69, but for about 30 years or so. And Gunagrari Maharaj always wrote an offering. Every sannyasi in our movement gets to write an offering. And he's written one every year since I could remember. The last few years, he was ill in Vrindavan. He had contracted cancer, and he went to Vrindavan, and he did all kinds of Ayurvedic treatments, and he was there for more than 2 years. He stayed at Giriraj Swami's place. Giriraj Swami very mercifully gave him access. And although he was ill and getting iller as time went on, he organized this nightly kirtan there, which became world famous in ISKCON. Every night, devotees would gather, and there's always devotees in Vrindavan ready to chant. And so it became very famous. I didn't have an opportunity to go, but I heard about it. And this last offering, he talks about the chanting. And I think it's very moving, and that's what I wanted to share with you, and then we'll talk about the chanting, which is so important. So, let me see, I didn't mark the page, but it's here. So he begins, Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my prostrated obeisances in the dust of your lotus feet. On this most auspicious day of your Vyasa Puja, I would like to share with you that during this challenging period of my life, which is filled with the difficulties of advanced cancer, what is most important to me are your wonderful self and your gifts. And first among these glorious gifts is the divine kirtan of the holy name. My first taste of that divine name, which came at a Sunday feast kirtan in Buffalo, New York in 1969, impacted me in a way that I had never felt before. It gave me newfound faith in your Lord Krishna, along with faith in the knowledge you were imparting. It forever changed the direction of my life and established you as the captain of my ship, and my lowly self as the sweeper of its deck. During those early years, my faith and enthusiasm for kirtan kept increasing. The more I heard you and saw your ecstatic smile and transcendental energy, such as when you leaped into the air in ecstasy at those memorable Ratha Yatra kirtans in San Francisco in the early 70s, and as you chanted and danced enthusiastically in your temples and on Harinams, undeterred by your aging body and failing health. In these and many other ways, you never stopped showing through your example and instructions that holding kirtan, both among ourselves and for the general public, is our true life and soul. Since that very special moment at the Sunday feast in 1969, when Krishna became real to me, you have led me on a most wonderful adventure that never seems to end. As the years have passed, I have taken part in thousands of joyous kirtans filled with the happiness of chanting congregationally. I have experienced the miracle of Krishna's holy names working magic on me and many others, making devotees out of sinners, eradicating interpersonal problems, inspiring bonding among individuals, and even making friends out of enemies. Along with some devotees who are caring for me, I've now been in Vrindavan, a most special land that I have been given access to by your mercy alone, for over 2 years. Each night we welcome guests to our Vrindavan Kirtan Sangha, which by Krishna's grace has become a well-known event internationally, and also the very highlight of my life. In fact, it has given me life, thanks to your divine grace. I never cease to be amazed by the variety of our guests, the excitement we all feel, the joy and affection among us, and my feeling and mood after having taken shelter of the devotees in the kirtan, even after I may have first felt too much discomfort even to leave my bed to enter the adjoining room to attend the kirtan. In fact, many days I feel so inspired by the kirtan that after getting help to get dressed, I then walk unassisted to the kirtan and dive in. And by the time the kirtan ends and the loving interactions have come to a close, my pains and woes miraculously seem hardly worth paying attention to. What a marvelous natural pain medicine, and what a benediction to have been given that medicine, the holy names, by your divine grace. Among your many gifts resulting from our kirtans, Srila Prabhupada, one I find very special is that young blossoming devotees who I just met who I knew during their infancy, childhood, or youth, and who have grown up under your shelter have been coming to our Sangha, playing instruments, and leading the most inspiring kirtans, having been inspired in their own homes and yatras. The association of these devotees is wonderful, and for me to connect with them while we chant and then to bond with them more intimately after kirtan are experiences I will always cherish, and the friendships continue. And lastly, I find it of ultimate significance and certainly remarkable that you have shown by the success of your glorious worldwide movement that due to your dedication, purity, and unalloyed surrender, you have achieved your cherished goal of fulfilling the prediction of Lord Chaitanya and the desire of the Guru Parampara that the holy name of the Lord would be heard in every town and village of the world. There's 2 exclamation points after that. I feel truly blessed and fortunate to be taking part. Kirtan is filling the hearts of your devotees and bringing together people of all classes, nationalities, and ages who enthusiastically chant and dance together as they gradually break free of all bodily distinctions. Your gift truly offers all of us that taste of the nectar we always sought, but had never been able to identify until you found us and rescued us. In our kirtan room is a large, beautiful painting of your divine grace done by a dear friend, those who know, Big Yudhishthir. I have a little small version in my room. In it you are smiling in great happiness and showering your infinite mercy on us all. I so badly need that mercy and the sublime shelter of the holy name, especially during this most challenging time. So, Srila Prabhupada, I thank you and thank you again and again. Wherever I am, I pray that your divine self and your simple truth, just chant Hare Krishna, will remain forever foremost in my heart. Praying to remain your humble servant always, Gunagraya Das Goswami. And that was written a few months before his departure. I think it was in September, mid-September or so. So, needless to say, we're going to say a little bit more about the holy name. First, a few words about Gunagraya Das Goswami. This temple that we're sitting in was found by him, bought by him, developed by him in the late 70s and early 80s. He was the president here, I forget the exact dates, for about 6-7 years, in the late 70s, early 80s. And this was just like a warehouse or something. There was no kitchen, there was no place to bathe. They went down to the corner to get to use the hose. There was a service station down there. And they had to cook in, right where you're sitting, right here, was where they set up a temporary kitchen. And he just built it up. And he had some wonderful devotees working with him and developed into... I came on the scene in '89, and by then he was no longer the president. He was traveling. He had the Vaikuntha Rat, the big mobile home. He was doing his program in Washington, D.C. on the mall, preaching, basically just giving out the holy name, prasadam, instruction, and his wonderful personality. And he really was a hero of this movement. He made many devotees, and he succeeded. His life, it was a life of success, because at the end there, he spent 2 years in Vrindavan, more than 2 years, and all of this chanting. And you see it on YouTube. There was showed the festival of his disappearance, and there were literally hundreds of devotees around him as he was interred there in Vrindavan. So I didn't get a chance to do this at his memorial. So I wanted to read that and focus on this chanting of the holy name. And so I want to read a little bit from a book called the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is a book that Srila Prabhupada wrote, and he's on his trip to America. He came to America in 1965 in August and September on a cargo boat. He had begged a free passage. He was a sannyasi. He had finally finished his 3 volumes of the first canto, great effort, publishing alone, basically. It took him 5 years to publish those 3 books. And once he had those books, he felt he had the ammunition. He could come and try to fulfill the order of a spiritual master, to spread Krishna consciousness in the Western world in the English language, and also, as mentioned in that wonderful Vyasa Puja offering, Lord Chaitanya's prediction that the holy name would be heard in every town and village. So here's a lone warrior, 60. He actually turned 69 while he was on the boat, and his health wasn't that great. He had two heart attacks on the boat. He'd never been on an ocean liner like that. He got very ill. It was very difficult, and when he got there, it wasn't much easier. He had one contact, not in New York, but in Pennsylvania. He stayed there for a couple of weeks and came back to New York. There was one yogi he stayed with, going here and there. And eventually, of course, he came down to the Lower East Side and was able to attract a small group of devotees who started the first center at 26 2nd Avenue. And things took off from there. The movement actually was founded, legally brought into being in July of 1966. And Srila Prabhu was always very anxious to publish books. This was part of his spiritual master's movement, how he spread Krishna consciousness earlier in India. And he told Srila Prabhupada memorably, if you ever get any money, print books. And so Srila Prabhupada had very little money, but somehow he printed 3 books. But when he came to America and he gradually got a following, that was one of the first things. First the magazine, Back to Godhead magazine, which I had an opportunity to work on for a few years. And then gradually small books, and then Bhagavad Gita and like that. So this Chaitanya Charitamrita is said to be the crown jewel of all of the Gaudiya Vaishnava writings. It tells the history of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was an incarnation of Krishna, who appeared about 530 years ago now. And he came in order to spread this chanting of Hare Krishna. The easiest process of devotional service, self-realization. In our main book, which is this multi-volume work called the Bhagavad Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, it's described, the advent of Lord Chaitanya is described. There it says, Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam Sango Pangasta Parshadam Yagyar Sangatana Praya Yajantihi Sumedasa. That in this age, we understand from the Shastra that Krishna appears periodically, as he says in Bhagavad Gita, whenever a dharma becomes too much, I come. So it's just, he appears in different ages. Rarely does he come as his original form, as Krishna. But whenever he does come, then the next yuga, Kali Yuga, he comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in this age, we're not really capable of practicing the difficult yoga systems, of doing huge sacrifices, which were proper in previous ages. What to speak of austerities? Just the austerity of coming to the temple is about all we could, is a rare thing, I think. Or, doing any kind of fasting on Ekadashi. Oh my God, a cold shower? Are you kidding? I won't survive, So what are we going to do? Because yoga really begins with that. It begins with self-control and austerity. So Lord Chaitanya says, okay, just begin with chanting Hare Krishna. Everything else will follow. There are austerities that come, but they become easy once you get the spiritual strength from chanting. So Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya to spread this very chanting that Maharaj was talking about and that we experience every day. And so this Chaitanya Charitamrita describes the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya in a most wonderful way. It's written by Krishnadas Kaviraj. Kaviraj is an epithet that's given to someone who's very expert poet. He got that epithet when he wrote another book earlier called the Govinda Lilamrita, which is a day in the life. It goes through and it describes Krishna's day in the spiritual world. Very, very beautiful descriptions. And later, he was requested to write this book about Lord Chaitanya and apply his wonderful erudition and his poetic ability, and to tell some of the pastimes that hadn't been taught in another book called the Chaitanya Bhagavat. So within this Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the what's called the Adi Leela, which is the first part, the last chapter, chapter 17, there's one verse that many of you may have heard before. This is the first verse that I memorized as a brahmachari, because it's so easy to memorize. And it's really an important verse. So those of you who know, you can chant line by line. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalau Nastyeva Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gataranyata. So some of you may not be so familiar, but there's so much repetition here. And that repetition is important, it's by means of emphasis. So what Srila Prabhupada's translation, this is Adi Leela chapter 17 verse 21. In this age of Kali, the present age, there is no other means for self-realization than chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name of Lord Hari. Now at this point I can't resist sharing my little poetic version of this, so please forgive me. If you want to achieve the supreme goal of life in this age, when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way that can ever be found, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, let my head ever unto your lotus feet bow. Hare Krishna. Now, there's no purport here, but it goes on. And here's another famous verse. Kali Kali Nama Rupa Krishna Avatar. Nama Hoite Hoi Sarva Jagat Nistar. In this age of Kali, the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, which we chanted earlier and we'll chant again, is the incarnation of Lord Krishna. Now just let that sink in a little bit. The sound of Krishna's name is itself an incarnation, giving us access to the Lord directly through sound. Simply by chanting the holy name, one associates with the Lord directly. Anyone who does this is certainly delivered. Delivered from what? Delivered from the thrall of matter, of illusion. This is the basic mission of life according to the Vedic culture, is to understand ourselves as spiritual beings and part and parcel of the supreme spiritual being, not not a part of this material world. And to break out of the bondage of birth, old age, disease, and death, birth, old age, and disease, which we have been in since time immemorial, but we forget. Each time we take a new birth, we forget all the previous lives. Is there anyone here can remember? Proof. but it's there. If we read Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Na jayate mrete vakadachan." It's right there. There's no birth and no death for the spirit soul. It's not slain when the body is slain. So this is the basic fact of our existence. We are eternal, our body is temporary. Anything that we try to aspire to do in relation to the body, to accumulate, to get settled, to get a place of peace or security, it's illusory. The force of time just keeps pushing us toward destruction and our next body. So the question is, what can we do while we have the time left and we have our intelligence, so that we can get the best destination? And the best destination is no more body, no more physical body. And that is what Prabhupada called going back home, back to Godhead. So he describes this, he describes it as self-realization or God-realization. Now so one associates with the Lord directly just by chanting His holy name. So this verse, now he's referring to the Harinama verse. He describes a little bit about it here. This verse repeats the word Eva certainly 3 times for emphasis, and it also 3 times repeats Harinama, holy name of the Lord, just to make common people understand. In other words, to pound it into our thick heads. To emphasize something to an ordinary person, one may repeat it 3 times, just as one might say, "You must do this! You must do this! You must do this!" Or maybe talking to your child or somebody. Thus, the Brihanaradiya Puran, that's where the verse is, repeatedly emphasizes the chanting of the holy name so that people may take it seriously and thus free themselves from the clutches of Maya. It is our practical experience in the Krishna consciousness movement. Now, he wrote this in 1974, so the movement had been around for about 8 years. In the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world, that many millions of people are factually coming to the spiritual stage of life simply by chanting the Harekrishna Maha Mantra regularly, according to the prescribed principles. Therefore, our request to all our students is that they daily chant at least 16 rounds of this Harinama Maha Mantra offenselessly, following the regulative principles. Thus, their success will be assured without a doubt. So this was Srila Prabhupada's genius, really. You know, whatever works to get the movement going, to get someone started in the process. I'll tell you a little story. When he began, the standard was, in Lord Chaitanya's movement, it's all coming down from him, was 64 rounds a day. Now, a round of Hare Krishna, I don't have my beads with me, but you've seen them. They're like rosary, with 108 beads, and 1 head bead, which you don't chant on. So, to chant a round means to chant 108 times the Hare Krishna mantra. And I've timed my chanting. It's very difficult to get down to 5 minutes a round. Have you ever tried to 5 minutes a round? Practically, it's impossible. It's like 3 seconds to chant the whole mantra. Generally, 6-7 minutes a round, you're going pretty well, you know. So, devotees, when they first came, there were no Tulsi beads. You know, they went down to the 5 and dime, got these big red beads, and they spent a day stringing them together, and they all had their huge beads, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada said, okay, now that you're serious, if you want to be initiated, and many did, you know, take initiation, get a new name, and really take vows, that's very important at one point, then you have to chant 64 rounds a day. He started with that. That was the standard. So the devotees went out, they were kind of shocked, they didn't know what to say, and it's chant, chant, chant. I don't know if anyone chanted 64 rounds that first time. You really have to, it takes 8 hours, you know. And so they came back to Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, or I think Swamiji at that point, Swamiji, if you want us to do anything else, we can't chant 64 rounds. And he had so many things to do, you know, putting out back to Godhead, cooking the feast, you know. Said, okay, 32 rounds. Okay, I go back to 30. Prabhupada, we can't do 30 rounds. 16 minimum, absolutely. And it was always minimum. You can always chant more, you know. So that became the standard. And there were also restrictions, you know, for those who want to be initiated. Because the idea is that we have to draw away, you know, not all of a sudden, but we have to train the mind and the senses to become detached from these material addictions that we've been cultivating since time immemorial, you know. And now, in this Kali Yuga, they come at you from all directions. It's like, you know, younger and younger. My goodness, and with the internet, it's so difficult. So how are you going to defend yourself? The point is that these allurements are what degrade the soul and keep us bound up in matter. And not only that, but a painful life. So this boon that Srila Prabhupada gave us, which was the Hare Krishna mantra and all the other process of devotional service, enabled anyone who takes it seriously to give up things that you might have been trying to give up for a long time, and realizing that this is not only not necessary for me, but it's harmful. You know, all the drugs and all these things, meat eating, who needs all this? It's horrific. It's not only killing yourself, but you're killing the planet. Everyone knows that by now, right? They say that if people in America would give up meat just 1 or 2 days a week, that would probably solve the problem. It's so inefficient. It's so making, burning so many fossil fuels just to keep this meat industry going, which is totally unnecessary. I've been a vegetarian since 1970. Well, how is that? Like 40, almost 50 years. You know? I'm 71 years old, and Jimmy jumping around in kirtan. I don't need any meat. Nothing like it. And all the devotees, it's not necessary. And Prabhupada's other genius, cooking. He was a wonderful cook, and he taught the devotees. The first feast he cooked himself. Oh my God. If I could only have been there, go back, time machine. Taste those wonderful feasts. Anyone who was there came back again the next week. This is so the wonderful prasadam prepared with skill and devotion and offered to Krishna, that gives you the higher taste, and you easily give up that addiction. But drugs, illicit sex, gambling, these keep us bound in the material concept of life. So by chanting and following, trying to follow and then being able to follow, this is how we make advancement in devotional service, and Srila Prabhupada proved it. So he mentions the 16 rounds here, so I thought I would also mention it. And the idea is that it's been made so simple. He even mentions in a couple of purport, it's not, to make advancement, it's not necessary to get initiation. You can make advancement before initiation, but initiation helps. It helps because you become committed, you get a new life, and you take vows, and having that connection with the spiritual master is very, very important. But there's much advancement to be made without that, and this is why people want to take initiation, because they want to keep going in the same direction. So this chanting, we should take it so seriously, and that's why also these books are so important, because they give us an intellectual foundation for why we should chant, why the holy name, why that sound, how is as Krishna manifests through his holy name, and all things are there in the books of Srila Prabhupada. So this was the world that Gunagrai Maharaj lived in, and he was so enthusiastic to expand it. In this very temple room, he had so many nice programs. The dinner program, when I came, that was going on. It wasn't every night. By the time I came, it was like 2 or 3 nights a week. It's like a little Sunday feast, throughout the week. You invite people to come and sit. Maybe, I don't know if they even charge anything, but there was nice sangha. There was wonderful prasadam. There was chanting. I don't know if they had a talk or something like that, and probably a little class. But the point is that it was sharing. It was sharing the wonderful life and world of Krishna consciousness. It's just like a little oasis of the spiritual world in the middle of the material world, and it gives you hope. I remember when I grew up in the 60s, and I was completely atheistic. I was trained as a dyed-in-the-wool, orthodox communist, I confess. At that time, my father, when I was growing up, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, he would take me in the kitchen table, he would open up, Das Kapital. Does that ring a bell? As Karl Marx's book. And he was training me, So, I was never, anyway, that was my faith. That was where I had my faith. Now, of course, it was dashed and destroyed in the 60s when we were demonstrating against the war in Vietnam and all these. And it didn't work. We had so much high hopes of stopping this war, but then Nixon got elected in 68, and the war went on and on and on, and I just became pessimistic and discouraged and, existentialist and really just wandering around with no purpose in life. And so, I spent some time living on the Lower East Side, believe it or not, 9th Avenue between, what was it? 9th Street between 1st and 2nd Avenue. Anyone who knows the geography of Manhattan, that's about 5 blocks from the original temple. But my mentality was a million miles away. I was a little bit of a street musician, you know. I would play the flute on the street and play some drums. And so I was always looking for someone to jam with. So I'd walk around with my flute, and I'd hear them drumming in the distance. Oh, that's good. Let me go there. I'd say, oh, it's just the Harekrishnas. I can't play with them. You know, let me go find some guys playing conga drums in the park. And that park was Tompkins Square Park. I lived in 2 blocks from Tompkins. But living that lifestyle, I eventually got sick. I got the hepatitis. And I was laid up in the hospital for a month. Very depressed, you know, everything had come to nothing. But what cheered me up? The moonshot. It happened to be, at least when they claimed, to have walked on the moon. And there it was, I'm lying in bed watching the TV, and there was, he's walking on the moon. He says, oh, that's enlivening. We walked on the moon. Anyway, I came out of there, and I wanted to, get my health back. So at that time, yoga was getting big. And I got a little attracted to Ravi Shankar music. So I said, well, let me try this yoga, this hatha yoga. And where did I go? Amala Bhakta's ashram. Those of you know Amala Bhakta Maharaj now. He was a hatha yogi. He was running a studio in the east side of New York at that time, and that's the one I picked by Krishna's arrangement. And I went there, and I learned the asanas and things like that, and it helped, And after a while, I left. He stayed. I joined the movement, and eventually he got disgusted with that and walked across town to 55th Street Temple and heard Ridyananda Das Goswami in 1979, give a lecture, and that was it. He was convinced. And so he came, and in this way I was, saved. I found what I was looking for. I was a radical. You know what, maybe that's not even a term these days. Radical means you try to get to the root of the problem. Now, at that time, we thought it was the socio-political system, But really, the root of the problem is right here in everyone's heart, is the consciousness. The root of individual problems and social problems is totally in what your consciousness is. If it's absorbed in matter, even, subtle matter, ideas, but they're material ideas, it'll never come to a conclusion. But if you get the truth, you get the actual absolute truth through the eternal shastras like Bhagavad Gita, as given by the pure devotee Srila Prabhupada, so it's Bhagavad Gita as it is, then it becomes clear that this is the solution. And all we have to do is follow it and experience it and propagate it. And that's the greatest hope for mankind. Because just take one problem, big problem, climate change could be the last problem, right? It's a disaster. I mean, it's not a mystery anymore that it's happening. Just look at the weather and the fires and the hurricanes and everything. I don't think we can blame the earthquakes yet on it, but they'll probably find a way. And so it's so what is the cause of that? What is the underlying cause of that? It is the rampant, uncontrolled consumerism. It is exploiting the earth in more and more extreme ways in order to enjoy an artificial lifestyle, and some people are extremely, uncontrolled, and it's not necessary. This life of Krishna consciousness, you want to live more simply. There's no need. Your wealth is in your experience, the chanting of Hare Krishna. I'll tell you a secret. When I was growing up in Krishna consciousness, I worked on this book, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I was always into the Sanskrit. You remember I was telling you I would play the drums walking around the street? I had this was almost a genetic thing. My father was a drummer in a band, and even in first grade, I'd finish my lessons, I'd be drumming on the desk. And I always had this rhythmic thing. So when I came to Krishna consciousness, and there's these verses in Bhagavad Gita and then Bhagavatam, and all of them have this wonderful chanda. Chanda is a beat. It's something that we have in English with my little rudimentary iambic pentameter, But the Vedic culture, the Sanskrit, has expanded it to incredible heights, beauty. So I started to get into that, and I would memorize various verses from the Bhagavatam. Like I remember when we came on Bhishma Dev's prayers. You've heard of Bhishma Dev? Bhishma Dev was the senior warrior on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the grandfather. And when he had the benediction from his father that he could live as long as he wanted. He didn't have to die at any time. But he was a great devotee of Krishna, even though he was fighting against the Pandavas. But he was a great devotee of Krishna. He loved the Pandavas, Arjuna and Yudhishthira and the others. So when the scene is in the 9th chapter, 1st canto of the Bhagavatam, they have his prayers. He's lying there, he's just instructed Yudhishthira for hours or days to take over the kingdom, because they won. And now, this certain astrological time, Krishna is there, standing by his side. He's there. There's all these great sages, and sages have come down from different parts of the universe, and they're ready for the disappearance of Bhishma Dev. So it's time, and he gives up all the talk to the Yudhishthira, and he starts chanting these prayers. And they're beautiful meter. I'll give you a sample. Tribhavanna kamanam tamalavanam rabakada godavaram barang dadhani and vapodalakakulabhatananam jampijiyasakeratarastumena vajja. Where do you find that in English? Or any other language? So what is he saying there? He's lying there, looking up at Krishna, who's looking down with his merciful face on him, It's this wonderful scene. He's got arrows through him. He's lying on a bed of arrows, but he's keeping his life and his air in his body because he had that benediction, at the right time. So now comes the time. A few more verses and he's going to disappear voluntarily. So he said, Chubhavanna kamanam. This form of Krishna I'm looking at is the most attractive in all 3 worlds. Tamalavarnam. He has a blackish complexion like a tamal tree. Ravikada Gora Varambadang Dadane. His form is covered with these silken yellow gold garments that's shining like the sun. Ravikada Gora Varambadang Vapodalakakulabhatananam. Beautiful lotus face surrounded by that curly black hair. This is a prayer we can all have. And that is that, let thy consciousness, attraction, be absorbed in this Krishna, who is the friend of Arjuna, the victor, Vijaya Sakhe, this friend of Arjuna who won the war, the battle. Let it be not diverted to anyone else. This is a prayer for us, is that our love, our affection should be directed toward Krishna, and through Krishna, through God, through everyone else. Not that we try to love separately, otherwise it gets dissipated. Queen Kunti has the same prayer. It's not so wonderful metrically, but it's very wonderful prayer. Tvaime ananda vishaya mati madhupate sakrit ratamad vahatara dha gange baugumadanvati. She's saying that, I put it into a little poem. O Madhava, please ever fill my mind with thoughts of thee, not any other kind. As Ganges torrent flows into the sea, let all my love flow constantly to thee. Anyone can take this prayer and go before Giridhari there and offer that prayer. So this is where your wealth is. Every time I would memorize a verse, I'd feel like I picked up a jewel and put it into my kurta pocket. I didn't need this wardrobe, like about $25 a year, and to buy these wardrobe. Imagine how much money you save just in haircuts. Who needs it? If you're happy with Krishna, chanting Hare Krishna, serving Krishna, helping the devotees, and picking up all these jewels. And over the years, the books have exploded. Prabhupada wrote all his books. I helped finish the Bhagavatam, 10th canto. It's free. You don't even have to buy the book. Get online and you download it. And I remember I was working on the 10th canto, and we came on these gopi geets. There's 4 of them in the Bhagavatam, of the gopis singing in separation from Krishna. Now, some of them are a little intimate, but some are just nectar. The gopis are praying. This is a famous one. They're praying to Krishna. This is actually in the middle of the rasa dance. If you know the rasa dance, Krishna leaves in the middle, and the gopis are like suddenly in the separation. And they wander around and go kind of mad, and they enact his pastimes. And then they come down to the bank of the Yamuna, and the moon is no longer so visible, and it's getting dark. And so they sing this song of separation. And in that song is one prayer that's become very famous because it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Tavakatamitam, this is the beginning. Tavakatamitam, tapta jivanam, kavabediditam, kalmashapaham, shavanamangalam, shimadatam, bhuvigunanti ye, buridajana. It's almost like a little complaining meter, you know. Tavakatamitam, tapta jivanam. One of the prayers say, why do you leave us in the middle of the night? You know, we came out here, we left our homes, we left our husbands and brothers and fathers, and now you're abandoning us? So they're kind of complaining. But then they say, Tavakatarmitam, my dear Lord, the nectar of talks about you are the life and soul for all of living entities suffering in this world. These vibrations are full of spiritual power. And those who are chanting these and spreading these vibrations are the best munificent welfare workers for the whole world. And as soon as we read that verse, when Chaitanya Charitamrita came out, before the Bhagavatam, we immediately thought of Srila Prabhupada, you know, who at such great effort went around to spread Krishna Katha, the most important of which, again, is the holy name, the Hare Krishna mantra. But all the other Katha that helps us fix our mind on Krishna. It's very simple. If we can think of Krishna when we leave this body, then we'll go back to Godhead. So between now and then, at that point, we should try to chant as much as possible and organize our life in such a way that we will be thinking of Krishna as much as possible, working for him and cultivating the knowledge that supports that understanding. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I wanted to also share the first verse of the Shikshastika. Lord Chaitanya, he hardly wrote anything himself, but he taught Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and others, and they wrote voluminous books of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. But one thing he did write was the Shikshastika. Shikshastika are these 8 essential verses concerning the chanting of the holy name. And the first verse, I wrote an article about this many years ago, it has 7 metaphors about the holy name, and it's very instructive. So I'll share with that, and we'll just contemplate that in a minute, then we'll have another kirtan. Some discussion. Then a kirtan. So those who know can chant along. Cheto darpanamajanam bhavamahadavagni nirvapanam shreya kaidava chandrika vatadanam vidyavadhu jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Padipadam Purnamita Swadanam Sarvatmasnapadam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. All glories to the chanting of Shri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. That chanting is the waxing moon that knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world. Of transcendental knowledge which will take us to life's goal, the chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds, wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's names are sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention as I earnestly request, please chant Shri Krishna's holy name and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. Isn't that a wonderful verse? By Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So real quick, we're just going to run through those points. The first is that we're in a fire, a blazing forest fire. You know, luckily we didn't experience it. It's such a horror thing. Who would imagine it would happen just a few hundred miles from here? Holocaust, you know, and how can you escape? So, but here he says, Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam, the forest fire of material life. The word bhava in Sanskrit means become, and it stands in for birth, old age, disease, and death. And that's a great fire. But here he says, by chanting the holy name in congregation, you polish the mirror of the heart, which is there's so much dust of unwanted attractions and things on there. And as soon as we polish it and we understand that we're spiritual beings and we get an experience of Krishna, that forest fire is extinguished and you're on your way out of this material world. So then he says, Shreya Kaidava Chandrikavatadanam. So he says it's like moonshine, soothing moonshine that's causing this. There's a night blooming lotus, a white lotus that blooms at night from the moonshine. And he says this Kairava lotus of good fortune spreads throughout the world as we chant congregationally on the street and we spread the holy name. And Vidyavadhu Jivanam. It is the life and soul of transcendental knowledge. We should always remember that we've had millions of births before, and we were originally in the spiritual world, and we know all of this already. We know Krishna, but it's buried. It's in our subconscious. So by polishing that mirror of the heart, the knowledge naturally starts to come out, and it's manifested in your great interest in reading books of knowledge that are confirming that. It says, Anandam Buddhivardhanam. So we try to get these little drops of pleasure in this world, sense pleasure. But we know that it's very difficult, and sometimes despite our greatest effort, we're suffering like anything. But here he says, there's an ocean of ananda, and this is expanding it, the chanting of the holy name. The more that we chant and we spread the chanting, this bliss, which is our natural state. Isn't that a wonderful understanding? Krishna is Anandamaya Bhyasad. This is from Vedanta Sutra, meaning that he is made of Ananda. This suffix Maya means filled with. Karunamayi, there's probably 100 million ladies named Karunamayi in India. Means full of mercy. Mayi is a feminine form. So Krishna is Anandamaya. He's full of bliss. There cannot be any unhappiness in Krishna. He's God. We're part and parcel of Krishna. So our natural state is to be filled with bliss. But because we're minute and we're covered by this material covering and misidentification, we're sometimes a little happy and mostly a little sad, and it's dukali and mashashvatam. We're not ananda, But that's our state. That's our natural state we want to get back to. So he says by chanting, becoming purified, you can expand your bliss so that you're never depressed. You're blissful and you're more blissful. That's your state, rather than miserable and a little bit happy sometimes. So anandam buddhivardhanam, pratibadam purnamitasvadanam. You can taste nectar at every step. If we chant constantly, if we can get to the point where we're always remembering Krishna, his holy name and form and qualities and pastimes, we'll always be happy. And therefore he says, sarvatma snapanam. Let everyone bathe the consciousness in the chanting of the holy name. Snapanam literally means to bathe. Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan. This Sankirtan will be victorious, both over our own illusion and in the world at large. This is Lord Chaitanya's verse. And then he goes on, which I won't get into now. Any discussion or comments on any of these points about the chanting? Okay. A couple more little poems, then we'll have some kirtan. Okay. Here's one more about the holy name. This is written by Raghunath Das Goswami. Another great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, one of the 6 Goswamis. And this is from a book called Stavavali, which is a compendium, an anthology of different works that he wrote. Radheti Nama. Now one thing to know, when we chant Hare Krishna, what is the meaning? Hare is a vocative form of Hara, which is a name for Radharani, stealing away. Just like Krishna's Hari, he steals away our heart. So Radharani is Hara because she steals Krishna's heart away. So that's a name for Radharani, the internal pleasure-giving potency of Krishna, personified love of God. So when we chant Hare, we're addressing Radharani. And of course, Krishna is Krishna. Rama is also Krishna, as meaning the ocean of unlimited bliss and pleasure. So, now back to our verse. Radheti nama navasundara sinu mugdam, Krishneti nama morarabhatagara dugdham, Sarvakshanam sadabhiraga himena ramyam kritvatadaiva pibame rasane chudarte. An excellent fresh nectar drink with endless subtle tastes. Such is the name of Radha, by whom all 3 worlds are graced. Condensed milk that is wonderfully delicious, thick and sweet. Such is the name of Krishna, in whom all attractions meet. Now mix these drinks, O thirsty tongue, and add the cooling spice of love, a prize the wise will try to buy at any price. And then in every moment drink this beverage most fine, and make my heart supremely blissful, peaceful, and divine. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Okay, we have a couple more minutes. We'll go another 2 or 3 minutes, a couple more shlokas. So one more little poem. Now this is I'll give you 3 verses, meditating on Krishna going out into the forest with his friends and playing in different ways. So what he says is, first it's, with lovely peacock plume upon his head, and fragrant flower placed upon each ear, he enters Braja's woods with graceful tread, a handsome dancing actor without peer. His golden yellow raiment brightly glows, his splendid garland reaches to his knees, and from his luscious lips the nectar flows, and fills his flute with charming melodies. As Krishna thus begins his blissful day, with cowherd friends who sing his glory sweet, he beautifies Vrindavan's forest way, with fine impressions of his lotus feet. So now they're out of the town, and they're going along the Yamuna, and Krishna and Balaram start to run. Have you seen the painting? They're running along and ahead, and all of their friends are behind, and the cows are running behind. So that's the scene that this illustrates. Let's go, said Krishna, don't delay at all. And he and Balaram began to run ahead of all their coward friends who called, "Oh Krishna, Rama, let us join the fun." And off they ran to Braja's forest haunts, to play in every bower, grove, and sward. The boys would tease their friend with playful taunts, forgetting his position as the Lord. Shri Krishna is inviting us as well to join him in his pastimes which enthrall. The wise heed Krishna when they hear him tell, "Let's go, my friends, do not delay at all." And finally, the meditation, there's another painting. Krishna's out in the forest, now well out. He's riding on a swing. Have you ever done that? I used to do it as a kid. You find some way of hanging a swing on a tree. So he's there with his friends, and they're swinging him, and he's, swinging. For Krishna and his multitude of friends, a festival of joy each day would bring. A special thrill in Braja's verdant glens was riding with them high upon a swing. O Ujjvala, Sridhama, Bhadrasena, just see Vrindavan's bountiful delights, the peacock's dance, the songbird's sweet refrain, the lakes and hills and other scenic sights. All these make this the best place on the earth for us to play all day and herd the cows. Thus Krishna, in a mood of sportive mirth, enthused his friends while swinging from the boughs. Okay. So if there are no comments or questions or objections or amendments, I am just a fool and a rascal. And we'll end on that. So we'll have a little more kirtan. We have about 21 minutes. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.